Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions regarding this watch. Today we discuss a stainless steel 50-piece limited edition launched in 2021 from Habring Squared. This is the ERWIN STAR SJX Edition 1, created with the well-known watch journalist and critic SJX. The timepiece in my hand represents a sort of 1950s dress watch on steroids. Nicely sized with classical proportions. You can see it's 38.5 millimeters in diameter, 10.7 millimeters thick, and from lug to lug, 46.1 with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now this strap has not been broken in, so it's going to be a little stiff. I'm going to have to pull it a little tight on my wrist, which is going to exaggerate the size of the watch. But this watch could wear well on a wrist as small as, in my estimation, really 14 centimeters circumference, and it's flat enough with a sloped bezel that it will slide under a dress cuff. Remember, stiff strap, and I'm pulling it tight. Taking a look at the bottom, you can see here, this is a Jean Rousseau strap, and I suspect that this is one of the straps we use for shipping inventory from continent to continent. So gator and croc are, of course, controlled materials under treaties. So this is a synthetic leather, I believe. Rest assured, when you get it, it will be the real deal. Though if you want, this is a hand-cut, hand-stitched Jean Rousseau strap that will last a really long time. And I would actually consider wearing it on that basis. So ask, and we'll probably throw this in with the leather. You can see we've got the logo right there for SJX and Habring in combination, but no logo on the crown, because traditionally that is not how a vintage watch would be made. Generally, branded crowns didn't start to appear until really probably Patek Philippe in the 1950s. It was uncommon even into the 60s to have the brand on the crown. You can see other elements that are vintage inspired. We have no beveling. We have these very squared off lug ends. We have extremely narrow but sheer case band. And then we've got these little strap tool holes in the end. So that's a very vintage look, as solid lugs have been de rigueur since, well, probably at least the early 2000s. We have a conical bezel, and you can see there's a little bit of an inward step from the case band to visually thin it, and then a flange adjacent to a slightly domed sapphire. The dial is a matte blue, which is to say sort of opaline, very finely frosted, not a directional metallic like a sunburst. We've got these lovely stamped and diamond cut faceted Dauphine hands at center. And then we have gold-plated brass individual stars and indices, and that's where I'm going to quickly jump to a loom shot to assure you that, yes, in fact, the watch is quite well loomed. Taking a look, this harks back to the star dial watches of the 40s and 50s. There were a couple of them from Rolex that stand out. The 6062, the 6098, the 6088. Reference those and you'll see exactly where this aesthetic came from. We've also got nice gilt chaptering outboard and a lovely counterweight to the Lancet style seconds hand. Now, of course, it's a deadbeat second, oddly enough. Also coinciding with that period, the 1950s seemed to see a sudden bumper crop of deadbeat seconds watches, often billed as doctor's watches. Now, there is a hacking seconds function, so you can stop it. Notice that it does stop precisely on the index each time, which I find absolutely gratifying. It's a watch of 2 heartbeats. One is 4 hertz, so obviously 8 beats per second, and then the other is 1 hertz. This is, of course, a Habring A11, whose train is based on the ageless Valjoux 7750. Now, that's also why the movement is fairly large. It's a 30 millimeter diameter base plate. Taking a look at center, you can see the climbing pinion method with a linear spring that's used to express the deadbeat system. And then with kiff shock protection, you can see the balance beaten away at 4 hertz, and we saw the hacking second a moment ago. We have a lovely combination of engine turned perlage, set nation. We have media blast. We also have both polished and blued screws, and all of this giving us a power reserve of 48 hours, pivoting on 21 joules. Really good looking watch on all counts. Of course, a 50-piece edition. This one is 05, so it's got that inversion serial. 50 meters water resistant, better than a standard dress watch, but still not swimmable. Taking a quick look, you can see SJX's logo is up at the top. And remember, I mentioned that little ring when we saw it on the buckle. That's his logo right there. Of course, the engraving here is a little bit deeper by design to make it more pronounced, and I do believe that was a specific aesthetic choice. The Habrings, Richard and Maria, husband and wife team, running the most prominent and friendliest watchmaking brand out of Austria. They only make a few dozen of any given model per year. So in addition to being a very craft brand, they're also very exclusive without being untenably expensive. These watches always embody a lot of value in watchmaking. So if you love this one, please reach out to me, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions. One last quick note, and only because I didn't really think I could show you this in the camera, but if you look at the stars, you could see that they're quite visibly separate from the dial, and I believe that is a peg-in-hole or pinned attachment system, the sort of feet or dial feet attachment mechanism used on older watches, where you insert the foot or sort of the peg below the index into a hole in the dial, and it creates on vintage watches and on this one a very visible lift of the index above the dial base.